So here's what is probably a very unpopular opinion. And that opinion is that if we want better times as humanity, we're going to need to sacrifice the internet. And you may think, oh, it's very rich for you to say this while posting it online, but
at the roundabout, take the second exit.
you know, come to think of it, I think I may have mentioned this in one of my other videos, probably the one where I was talking about social media being a feminizing agent. But it's still true. I wouldn't say that every problem that we have comes down to the internet, but at least a large part of it is. It's not only the internet, but technology itself. The liberation that comes from technology is causing us as people to be lazier, because we are becoming accustomed to the convenience that technology provides, that we're losing the value in hard work or adversity or reaping the rewards of an investment. And this then ties into the lowering of attention spans, the inability to cope with difficult times, and at the same time, through social media, technology is increasing neuroticism within people generally. The human psyche is degrading, so that we're getting narcissism is increasing and exploitation, individualism is increasing beyond our ability to mediate it, beyond our ability to create a world that's viable to live in as individuals, because our morals and ethics in a collective sense are degrading so much that it becomes impossible for the individual to be an individual within the aggregate of people. And you know, people think that most of our problems are economic, but we do have a lot of economic problems, but these economic problems are derivative of technology. Now, funny enough, this was probably the main argument that Karl Marx was making in Capital, the book, that the automation that's provided by technology leads to the decrease in value creation. So such an extent that the economy can no longer sustain itself. Capitalism can no longer sustain itself, and so, you know, this past 200 years has really been about how can humanity enter into the future, or make it to the other side of the abolition of labour for the most part without suffering for it. And the reason that communism was ever written about, leaving aside conspiracy theories, because I know all about those as well. Leaving that aside, it would seem that the only reason communism was ever a discussion is that the soul of humanity wanted to avoid a potential future which everybody knows is coming with the abolition of work, at least with the abolition of capitalism, which is distinctly the exchange of money for labour power. If that system collapses in under its own weight, or not so much under its own weight, but it becomes the system itself becomes redundant, because there is too much labour being performed by machinery, that there is not enough money being generated to pay the remaining human labourers. It's not my intention to delve into Marx's labour theory in this video, but of course I had to give a brief explanation of what I'm talking about. Everybody knows that slavery is on the horizon, because it is not the case that machinery can do everything for us, but at the same time, the system that we've employed for the past, I don't know, 400 years, let's say, is no longer sustainable, and so we are kind of at an impasse at the moment, a crossroads, and socialism is at its wit's end with trying to deal with this problem. It was working at the end of World War II. It was working. You know, fascism came and it solved socialism's problem for it. The class struggle, which was really the main contention within socialism. The class struggle was mostly settled. It was solved by fascism, and it's worked pretty well for the past 100 years, give or take 10 or 20 years. But now we have a problem, and the internet has really accelerated this process. So not only is the internet bringing about the end of capitalism, but it's ruining the psyche of man at the same time. And so it would seem to me that quite a lot can be solved by sacrificing the internet. People will probably feel more at peace generally if the rate of information is slowed down. When you see videos online about people find their old video camera footage from the 90s or the 80s or whatever, and you know, it's a day in school, or I don't know, a day in the life hanging out with friends, or a day at the concert, or whatever it was, Christmas time.
Turn left.
And nobody's holding a mobile phone, nobody has a laptop. You can feel the presence of peace. And maybe there's some type of delusion there on the part of the spectator, but anyone that was alive at the time and views those videos can feel it. You have a latent memory of those times, what it was like. A time where if you wanted to get information, you went to the library and got a book, otherwise you relied on the established media, television, newspapers, to get your news, to get your information. And this change in the rate of information exchange,
At the roundabout, take
I
the first
believe,
exit.
has had a negative influence on the psyche of man. We're not evolutionarily adapted to deal with it, and things move too fast. Things are too transitory, and there's no stability, no security, no anchor. And this ties into
At the
morality,
roundabout, take the first exit.
ethics,
A26.
religion, friendships, marriages. It's all related. Now, if I said to 99% of people, how do you feel about, you know, getting rid of the internet? You're not going to find much support there, because whether people would like to admit it or not, they are utterly addicted, as am I. Don't get me wrong. I don't speak from a lofty position here. I'm speaking from one of those rolling around in the mud. But I believe that if you was to rip the cord hard and fast,
At the roundabout,
it would be
take the
quite
second
devastating
exit, A27.
for probably 10 years. But how much better would it be after those 10 years? And perhaps you don't need to completely remove all technology, but at the very least, social media must go. Or it must at least be transformed into something different. Something that restores authority to the experts, because that's something else that we've lost with the internet, is with the rampant individualism. The rampant individualism and the ability for everybody to have a voice. When you consider that 50% of the population has a less than average IQ, which is 100 if you live in a white nation. It means that 50% of the population now has a voice to express what is only ever going to be mediocrity at its best. At its peak, it will be mediocrity. And there is all sorts of things I could say psychologically about how people despise the intelligent and the competent, because this is human nature. And so the internet really enables a climate of anti-intellectualism or just a climate of stupidity. And if anyone was to deny that we have that now, then I would say that you are one of the stupid people. You know, there's a lot of talk at the moment about tyranny, and I've said my piece about it. How much more tyrannical would it be called if, for instance, me or a group of people somehow, some way, was able to destroy the internet utterly in one fell swoop?
At the roundabout, take the second exit to A27.
I would probably be called the worst person since a particular Austrian man. But I'm only trying to help, guys. I promise. I'm only trying to do a good thing. But people they love their vice, they love their fraud, and they love their poverty. So
Continue on A27.
you just have to expect things to get worse, I'm afraid.